I hadn't slept in 2 days. Navy life will do that to you. Galley shifts, noise, metal, orders, and the kind of fatigue that sandpapers your mind down to the grain. I was 19 and already tired of being me. The boy who wanted to run off with the circus, sing with the Vienna Boys Choir, fly jets, fight fires, fight TIE fighters, be anyone but the dork in the back row who dreamed too loud and learned too slow. School, it felt like a rerun. Second grade was first grade again, third was second with extra worksheets. Somewhere along the way, I decided school was for other people. My mind was busy elsewhere, somewhere, anywhere. That same dreamer made me reckless with faith. I learned to speak promises as if my voice could force God's hand. I mistook volume for faith. I mistook fantasy for calling. It was Tinder waiting for a spark. After a 13-hour day working in the galley, Art and I went for a walk on Coronado Island. I had an epiphany. Heinz, I just realized something. I act differently with you than I do other people. As a matter of fact, I act differently with each person I come in contact with. It's like I adjust to their level of intelligence. I don't know why I never noticed that before. This is a cool concept. I think I'll call it my ladder concept. I'm gonna roll, Heinz. I'm really gonna mess with your head tonight. At that moment, Porter lost all control of his body. He stopped in his tracks and fell on his knees. He felt no pain. He turned his head to look at his friend Heinz, who was also on his knees. Both of them repeated the words at the same time. Someone's gonna mess with both your heads at the same time. Fear snapped us awake. My chest thudded. I could feel the air inside my mouth like a foreign thing. We need to get off this island, I said, and even the sound of my voice felt borrowed. Then my life broke open. It came like lightning, white, hot, and layered. My whole story began to flash before my eyes in frames I couldn't control. The shock wasn't that I saw it, it was that Art saw it too. We were looking through each other's eyes. 2 lives, 1 lens. Truths didn't arrive one by one, they stacked. A base appeared, something I already knew or thought I did, and a second block landed on top of it, and then a third. And each new weight tied the others together until I could feel the shape of it more than see it. A pyramid of concepts rose in the dark. Bottom-line realities, mid-level frameworks, top-line principles that wrapped back around and locked everything in place. Words fired between us like sparks catching dry pine. Adam and Eve. Yes, DNA. Sin passes to children. I see it, it flows. Pyramid, wraparound. It's building in my head right now. I said, it's an old one. Art finished, but a good one. We laughed, scared and giddy. Then whole ideas began sliding between us without words, a pressure behind the eyes, a completed thought arriving pre-spoken. Mind to mind, until it frightened us back into speech. Somewhere in that torrent I felt discernment ignite. A clean, cutting edge inside me that separated the temporal from the eternal, the literal from the meaning, the physical from the spiritual. Layers of reality peeled back like film on a window. Then another gift, the mind of Christ, not as a title I could boast about, but as a capacity that wasn't mine. I could ask any question and the answer stood there, waiting. I could turn any direction and be shown which way to walk. Later, Frank would prophesy it plain, mind of Christ, wisdom of Solomon, patience of Job. But that night, it wasn't a prophecy, it was a presence. And still the pyramid rose. The first cornerstone hit like a falling stone into the sternum. I am the Son of Man. Art locked eyes with me and the same realization cracked across his face. Yes, your life mirrors all humanity. It wasn't poetry, it was weight. Myself wasn't just myself, it was a mirror. From that moment forward, I would read people quickly. Not their resumes or their reputations, but their posture toward humanity, their view of God's image in others. And the Spirit drove the nail home. How people treat you is how they treat mankind, and how they treat mankind is how they treat Christ. The torrent paused only long enough to breathe, then thundered again. With it came warnings hidden inside the light. Don't exalt yourself. Knowledge without wisdom is a curse. Hold the paradox, strength and weakness, the last first, the path that narrows as it opens. And at the end of every revelation, I heard the same 2 words, intimate and heavy, my son. It troubled me. Art didn't hear it, but I knew I was shaking. The pyramid peaked. There's no other way to say it. We arrived together at a shared summit, a clarity beyond the clarity. where every block held every other block in place and you could see the whole. I realized at a single gulp that the torrent wasn't just for us. It braided across time, past, present, and future, like a cord pulling many lives through one eye of the needle. And in the middle of that flood, the Spirit spoke, as clear as anything I'd ever heard. You are not the cornerstone. That place belongs to Christ alone. You are the capstone, the finishing witness, the topstone God set to crown his work. Neither of us realized or understood until later we had received a full measure of the Holy Spirit. I trembled. Even as the gifts poured in, the voice made my role clear. Not foundation, but finishing witness, the last stone pointing all eyes down to the cornerstone carrying it all. The torrent went on for hours. Art and I repeated to each other, if it works, go with it. We finished each other's sentences. It's an old one, but a good one. Together we saw God's master plan, top to bottom wrapped around like a structure too vast for one mind, but made bearable by two, with the top feeding into the bottom and the bottom supporting the top. By dawn, the torrent tapered. My mind felt scorched, my body drained. I discovered my keys were gone. Only my lighter remained. To be called the key all night and then find them missing shook me. Later, Jesus' words ring in my ears. I will give you the keys of the kingdom. We were back at the carrier. I lost my keys and couldn't get into my locker. Panic slid a cold hand around my ribs. All night I'd been called the key, and now I didn't have any. We walked into S2 Division, and there was Mullins beating on my locker lock with a hammer. "What are you doing?" I asked. He didn't look up. Art turned to me without turning his head, like men do when they don't want to startle. "Because he knows you lost your keys," he said. The floor tilted. A second wave of realization. "Oh my God, you mean he knows about last night?"
"They all know," Art replied. I felt my mind fold in on itself like a field cot. Lights on, nobody home. I grabbed my work clothes and headed for the galley. First Class Petty Officer Morales caught my eye with a look that could salt a field. I was 45 minutes late. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. I worked 12 hours like a man trying to thread a needle underwater. Thinking hurt. By mid-morning, my higher mind had shut down. I was running on lower brain. Heat, knives, trays, motion. Around 1100, Art came by and stood there, light behind him like a halo you couldn't tell was a joke or a warning. He said one word. "Why?" I stared at him. 10 minutes later, someone else asked it. Then someone else. Within 3 hours, a dozen people had walked up and asked the same word. Why? Like a chorus God had taught them while I was sleeping on my feet. I figured Art must be telling them to mess with me. I told myself anything that could keep me from falling off the world. By the time Morales finally released me, he added a parting shot. Don't bring personal problems to work. I wanted to tell him the truth, that work had come to my personal and rearranged the furniture, but there's no forms chit for that. "You want to get out of here, Porter?" Art asked. "I sure do," I said. "Mind if I come?" Sheridan asked. "I'd like to see this for myself." "Come on," I told him. "I know you know, and I know you know I know you know." He smiled without his mouth and we got on the bus. We rode in silence toward NTC, 3 men in a tin can, the hum of the engine stitching the world together. We got off near the main gate and walked up into the woods. Birds, wind, the sound of our shoes, saying what our mouths couldn't. Somewhere in those trees, where everything man-made went quiet, I started to feel normal again, or a kind of new normal, the kind that doesn't fit, but still wears. "It's played out here," I said finally. "Let's get back." On the street, I stopped. The question that had been following me like a dog finally caught up. "Heinz, why has everyone been asking me why all day? What is it I don't know?" Art didn't answer right away. He looked past me, as if the answer were a person approaching. "Because everyone knows something you don't," he said. "You mean the rock and roll fantasy? Is that why?" "That started it," he said. "But it's not why. It's been in God's plan since the beginning." Then what is it, Heinz? What is the why? He drew a breath that didn't end. When he spoke, his voice wasn't quite his own, the way a river isn't the banks it runs through. As it was, so again it shall be. The words struck me like a bell I'd heard ring once as a child and had been listening for ever since. Planetarium, 9 years old. The phrase dropped into me again, and for a second I couldn't tell if I was standing in 1978 or if time had collapsed and I was standing in all of it. "You mean," I started but couldn't finish, "Christ? Alive? Today? Through me?" "Yes," Art said simply. My mind tried to run 2 roads at once and tripped. "Don't you understand? The concept isn't Son of Man." Art's face lit with something like relief. "Son of Man." My first thought was I had died and just didn't know that yet. Cornerstone 2 dropped into place with finality. Son of Man made me a mirror. Son of Man made me a vessel. One named the crowd in me, the other named Christ in me. Suddenly the torrent made sense. The pyramid, the warnings, the discernment, the gifts, the chorus of why, the keys, the locker, the day at work that wasn't work, the center had arrived. We stood there while the world recalibrated. What you've experienced is the start of a new dispensation, a time when all things are made known. The W questions will be answered, even the one that isn't a W. "How?" I said, and we both laughed. "You mean to tell me all of this is in the Bible?" I said. "I can't go dig all this out of the Bible," I told him, not as defiance, but plain exhaustion. "If what you say is true, just redo my life from 1963. I have to go back to the time of Jesus. I don't have the knowledge of that life. If that's who I am someday, then it's something I still have to do." Art let that settle. We both knew there were only 2 roads. A normal life, a good one, probably, quiet and decent. Or this. You'll be presented with more, then you'll choose. By then, the adrenaline had burned off and fatigue took its place. 48 hours awake, my brain was a radio stuck between stations. We headed back to the bus. For 2 weeks, I asked the same question. Why me? And for 2 weeks, Art refused to answer. Then one day, he finally spoke. "You have King David's birthright." I froze. What does that mean? The full answer wouldn't come until 1983, sitting in Bill Severance's church, when I learned what King David's birthright was and how it tied into the eternal kingdoms. Even then, the why was still open-ended. I didn't become holy that night. I didn't become strong. I became awake, and that is more dangerous than strong. I would learn later that God's purpose wasn't to make me sinless in a day, but to teach me how to overcome sin over years, decades, like clay under a potter's wheel. I would put up a veil and then a wall. I lived a double life for most of the next 47 years, peaks of clarity and long plains of ordinary failure. Double-minded, just like James warned, unstable in all my ways. The veil separated me from the world and worse, from God. But even through that veil, he kept breaking in, through witnesses, through scripture, through revelations, confirmations, and taught me through pastors, teachers, evangelists, prophets, and apostles. 6 months after that day, God made a covenant with me saying, "Prepare yourself for God's eternal plan, for someday I have something I need you to do." That's when I chose to pick up your cross and follow Jesus. I still don't pretend to own the why, but the why has owned me, and that's enough. And the verse that held the floor together that day still holds. As it was, so again it shall be. What has been will be. What will be has already been. And God requires the past to return, not as a rerun, but as a redemption. That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been, for there is nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 9.
Please like, share, and subscribe.